This is called Question. Do you think old people should be put away? The one red rheumy eye, the pupil that goes back and back, the hands are scaly. Do you think all that should be hidden? Do you think young people should be seen so much on Saturday nights, hunting and singing in packs the way they do, standing on street corners looking this way and that? Or the small children who are visible all the time everywhere and have nothing to do but be smart, but be athletes, but jump, but climb high fences? Do you think hearts should sink? Do you think the arteries ought to crumble when they could do good? Because the heart was made to endure. Why does it not endure? Do you think this is the way it should be? I want to read a couple of poems from certain parts of my life. When I have a couple which I wrote when I was. This is a very slippery podium. It's the right height, but it's too slippery. Thought I'd read these two poems I wrote on El Salvador. It says, "Come look," they said, "here are the photograph albums." And since I say it in the poem, you may not quite believe it, you know. I'll say it in prose for a minute. We really sat down around the table, and we looked at these photograph albums, and they apparently had huge photograph albums that the mothers of the disappeared could look at, looking for their children. And this is, "Come, look," they said. "Here are the photograph albums. These are our children. We are called the mothers of the disappeared. We are also the mothers of those who were seen once more, then photographed. Sometimes parts of them could not be found. A breast, an eye, an arm is missing. That is why we are called the mothers of the disappeared, although we have these large, heavy photograph albums full of beautiful, torn faces." Then one woman spoke. "About my son," she said, "I want to tell you, this is what happened. I heard a cry, 'Mother, mother,' keep the door closed. A scream, the high voice of my son. His scream jumped into my belly. His voice boiled there and boiled until hot water ran down my thigh. The following week, I waited by the fire making tortilla. I heard, what? The voice of my second son, 'Mother, quickly, turn your back to the door, turn your back to the window.' And one day of the third week, my third son called me, 'Oh, mother, please, hurry up. Hold out your apron, they are stealing my eyes.' And then in the fourth week, my fourth son, no, it was morning. He stood in the doorway. He was taken right there. Before my eyes, the parts of the body of my son were tormented. Are you listening? Do you understand this story? There was only one child, one boy. Like Mary, I had only one son." And this is called "What If," and I guess I wrote it in '99. What if this century doesn't end? What if the Serbs continue their snarling, self-loving wrath, and the Kosovars their hopeless arming, and the Hutus their vengeful, slaughtering rage, and the American armed mullahs of Afghanistan their devout exclusion of the joyful life of women, and the landowners of the world their terrible return again and again to what is unrightfully theirs? and the darker people burning with insult and pride of population, and the Americans their deliberate impoverishment of Vietnam in order to win the lost war. And the Russians continue their hard job of giving up old badness just to be bad like everyone else. And the Irish unstrung on the lyres of history, and the Somalis clanned and unclanned, and the Israelis refuse to admit that Mohammed was also the child of Abraham, and the Palestinians insist that they are not brothers, and the Turks their habitual attacks on the Kurds, and the Iraqis their habitual attacks on the Kurds. But what if my friend never stopped saying, if I had 6 sons, I'd give them all? What if I scream horror and she explains the idealistic politics of sacrificing sons? And what if the 36 just men and women who repair the world year after year feel their frailty and petition that one to increase their number? What if there is no answer from time creating heaven? No sound, no interest, not a turning away, suddenly, absence. What if there is no child, male or female, white or black, no mother, no child? I'll read one more and then we'll talk a little bit. This one says, is there a difference between men and women? Oh, the slave trade, the arms trade, death on the high seas, massacre in the villages. Trade in the markets, melons, mustard greens, cloth shining, dipped in onion, dye, beet grass. Trade in the markets, fish, oil, yams, coconuts, leaves of water spinach, leaves of pure water. Cucumbers pickled, walking back and forth along the stalls, cloth bleached to ivory, argument from stall to stall, disgusted and delighted in the market. Oh, the worldwide arms trade, the trade in women's bodies, the slave trade, slaughter. Oranges coming in from the country in one basket on the long pole, coconuts in the other, on the shoulders of women walking, knees slightly bent, scuffing, stumbling along the road, bringing rice into the city, hoisting the bundles of dry mangrove for repair of the household, trade in the markets on the women's backs and shoulders, yams, sometimes peanuts. Oh, the slave trade, the trade in the bodies of women and children, the worldwide unending arms trade, and everywhere man-made slaughter. I'll just read, I'll end this part of our talking together with this poem, which is to my husband, to Bob. Here I am in the garden, laughing, an old woman with heavy breasts and a nicely mapped face. How did this happen? Well, that's who I wanted to be, at last. A woman in the old style, sitting, stout thighs apart, under a big skirt, grandchild sliding on, off my lap, a pleasant summer perspiration. That's my old man across the yard. He's talking to the meter reader. He's telling him the world's sad story, how electricity is oil or uranium and so forth. I tell my grandson, run over to your grandpa. Ask him to sit beside me for a minute. I am suddenly exhausted by my desire to kiss his sweet, explaining lips.